If your team got guaranteed money, tell them call me.
Whoop. Make me say, my.
I done been around the world.
Yeah, I was made for this.
Player Performance with J.A. Cavalier.
Welcome to NBA Player Performance, Wednesday, October 30th, 2024. A big card today, 11 games. We bring you the details and official plays on the top 7 games on our card. 2 national games, spotlight stuff, and great conversation. I am your host, The Shark. We're featuring today Downtown Junior Brown and Coach Rick. And of course, shouting out the legend himself, J.A. Cavalier, on vacation this week. Make sure you guys head on over to ylose.com, YLOSE.com for all of our packages, VIP plays, and more. Make sure you drop a comment below on YouTube. Tell us what you think of the plays and the show. Thumbs up, likes, help the show grow across the platform. We appreciate you guys immensely. And now let's get into the plays. Raptors at Hornets, 7 o'clock in Charlotte. Another game that is a snapshot to betting making a game special that is not particularly interesting. Junior Brown in the house, Coach Rick in the house. Junior, talk to me on the rosters in this game tonight.
Yeah, I actually enjoy watching the Charlotte Hornets, so call me crazy. They got a lot of exciting young players. Now, I didn't say that they're a good team, but they've got a lot of exciting young players. Unfortunately, one of the best ones, possibly the best one of the bunch, Brandon Miller, depending on your opinion, is not going to be in. On the flip side for Toronto, Scotty Barnes is out, so that's why I don't really have a take on this game. Too many questions for my likings, not enough answers for me.
Yeah, and I do have an official play on this game, taking the Hornets at -6.5. And, historically in my portfolio, I like to look at these games because I feel like when there's not a lot of eyeballs on the game, books give you more access to a side. And I think as a jumping off point, when you see the Hornets laying 4.5 at open, 6.5 now, it tells you a pretty significant story. And Charlotte is a bye team. Obviously last year, very injured, no LaMelo Ball, a lot of stuff going on. 2-1 ATS this year, coming off of a home non-cover in their previous game against Miami. Key point on that, though, 3rd and 4 back-to-back, home game 1. Let that be what it is. Now Charlotte gets 5 out of their next 6 at home, 14 of their next 21. And this reminded me, when I was looking at it, of Houston last year and Orlando last year. And for those of you guys who don't know what I'm talking about, I'll describe it. Young team Houston and Orlando last year, the league set them up with a highly advantageous schedule. I think the league wants Charlotte to improve, and they're helping them out here. And you go to the Toronto side of this game, missing a lot of players tonight. Toronto is way too high. 3-0 ATS last 3, but I think pretty situational. Caught Philly without Joel Embiid, and caught Minnesota and Denver, 2 Western Conference teams, just purely not taking themselves seriously. Go back to last year very briefly here. Toronto dominated the matchups, 3-0 straight up. However, 1-2 ATS, cratering late season, not covering. This is the first time Charlotte's been favored in a long time in this matchup. I have some margin coming here tonight. Take Charlotte at 7 o'clock. Coach, any thoughts on this?
Yeah, for me, this game's one of those where it's a turd and you just can't polish it. Too many guys are out. If I had to lean one way, it might be on the total. We've talked about it before where you get a bunch of guys that are backups that are going to get a shot, and they're going to play significant minutes tonight, and maybe they play well and push the total over. The over's cashed in 7 of the last 9 for the Hornets. They don't play great defense. So, again, if I had to lean one way, I think I'd take the over.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree. As you mentioned, a lot of the players for Toronto out tonight. Taking Charlotte officially at -6.5. Let's cash this ticket. Lakers at Cavaliers, 7 o'clock, out of conference basketball in Cleveland. Pretty interesting matchup here. Finding a hot Lakers team in their first campaign with J.J. Redick at coach. 3-1 ATS. Impressive wins, and impressive is Cleveland as well. 4-0 straight up in ATS, Junior has taken note of that fact, taking Cleveland team total over 114.5.
He has a Cleveland team that's scoring 123.5 points a game. We obviously, again, with every single pick here, have to be careful of sample sizes and not making any wild, takes one way or the other. So I'm going to take that average with a grain of salt. Sorry, they played Detroit, Toronto, and Washington, right? So they're putting up a lot of points against mediocre to terrible teams. Against the Knicks, they only put up 110. However, this Lakers team's defense is not great. Coach made a good point off camera. The Lakers' transition defense is terrible, a point that I agree with wholeheartedly. And as part of this cap, I think this team is going to look to run. Kenny Atkinson should never have been fired from Brooklyn, and now he's finally getting a chance to coach a team again. And I think this Cavs team is going to be better. They're going to run, and they're going to cover this 114.5 at home against a Lakers team whose defense, it's okay, but it's not great.
Yeah, Coach, any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, just I agree with Junior. I mean, we talked about transition defense, and they're just garbage. They don't run well. And you're playing Cleveland's playing at home, which they play well at home. They're 30-17 there in their last 47 games at home. So yeah, I would concur with Junior on that team total.
Yeah, and I think a final point on this. Last year, these teams did play a game in Cleveland. Pretty noteworthy over 121 to 115. Cleveland did get over that team total. And the most recent matchup played out west in LA. Lakers 116, Cleveland 97. So you see 97, now you see 114.5. It's what you guys said. Kenny Atkinson stylistically is coaching a great offensive quality of ball with this group. Darius Garland looks great alongside Donovan Mitchell and some of these bigs. Should be a great game here in Cleveland at 7 o'clock. Junior Brown officially on Cleveland team total over 114.5.
Let's cash this ticket.
Celtics visiting the Pacers, 7 o'clock in Indianapolis. A lot going on in this game. A rematch of the Eastern Conference Finals from last year. Not even 6 months removed, however. It seems like the Celtics are still completely on it, and Indiana is not taking the game seriously at this point in the year. A lot of officials in this game. The buy hat is engaged, but opening the conversation, Junior Brown back in the house, a trifecta. Boston first quarter, first half, and game.
What's up, Sharky? Yeah, it's been a while since we pulled a trifecta. I think it's the first one of the season, and if there's any team you want to do that with, it would be the Celtics, who are the best first quarter team in the league and the best first half team in the league. And as the big boss, J.A. Cavalier, says, if you go 2 for 3, you're living nice. All jokes aside, that has a lot to do with the Pacers' futility. Last year, they were one of the worst defenses in the league, but they made up for that by scoring 1.21 points per possession. That was second in the league in one of the historic offensive ratings. They are now currently 19th in the league in offensive rating, and the way they play is just not going to get it done, especially as Shark mentioned with the way the Celtics looked, and they look like a focused team who wants their respect as the defending champions, and they seem intent on going out and taking it. Not to make this a long monologue, all of the problems you saw with Indiana and their inability to close out games is popping up and rearing its ugly head, but more importantly, or more worryingly, for Indiana fans, Tyrese Halliburton's inability to play consistent basketball at a high level. He can play at a high level, but he cannot do it night to night. And until he proves that he can do that, this is a team I'm going to be fading in spots like this. You're giving me the Celtics at -1.5 first quarter, -3.5 first half. I'll take that all day. Full game -6.5 I don't love. But again, the way the Pacers look, I'm rolling with the trifecta. Official.
Yeah, without question. And I'm also on the game officially at -6.5. And, as we mentioned, the psychological space for these teams seems to be very polarized right now. The Celtics are 4-0 straight up, 3-1 ATS, 2-0 ATS on big figures against playoff teams in the Eastern last year. Blew out the Knicks in the opener. I know a lot of people like the Knicks in that game. We told you the Celtics, we have a feel for this team. And I think a pretty noteworthy blowout of Milwaukee at home as well, on a very heavy 9.5 number. And, in this league right now where Joel Embiid is sitting out games, load management is really a problem, but a showcase to soft basketball. Joe Mazzulla, head coach for the Celtics, is out here talking about he wishes his guys were stirring up fist fights on the court. So it gives you a psychological snapshot to where this team is. And I really think this team, after winning the championship last year, understands this league right now is open for business. They are the elite team. A lot of the better teams are very young, probably before their championship window. And yesteryear's stars, LeBron, Steph, and others, are way older. The Celtics are well coached and smart. They know it's their time. And Tyrese Halliburton out here taking videos, shouting out 50 Cent, and the Netflix show recording for next year in the locker room, the team bus, the hotel, a total, utter distraction. Speaking of distractions in this game, Indiana is in a unique calendar spot, home one-off. Road game, home game, back on the road. Last year in this spot, they were 2-6 ATS. It's a very abysmal calendar spot. And final point, Junior said he doesn't necessarily love laying a big figure on the road with Boston. I'll tell him this, you should love it. Boston's only road cover in Indiana last year in a regular season was on this number, -6.5, 118 to 101. We love this game. We love the Celtics. Trifecta Junior, take -6.5 in the game, a collaboration play, and let's dominate. Pistons at Sixers, coming over here to Philly on this Wednesday night. Interesting game here in the Eastern Conference. Detroit catching 4.5 and a total at 219. Philly has a lot of moving parts. We're talking about load management in the Celtics take. Well, Philadelphia is exhibiting extreme load management. No Embiid, no Paul George, but oftentimes that means more points as Tyrese Maxey leads a track meet style game. Coach Rick in the house has taken note of that and is officially on the over at 219.
Yeah, one of the questions I had going in is, can Detroit ever crank up their offense? They finished 25th in the league last year, right back in the bottom five this year, but they have played some pretty good defenses. Quote from J.B. Bickerstaff, head coach of the Pistons. He said, "For us, it all starts with defense." Well, not tonight. I think the defense for Philly really is the trouble. I mean, they're giving up 118 a game. I think Detroit does crank up the offense tonight. They find some cracks. All three Sixers games so far have cashed on the over. And historically, you go back to these two teams and their rivalry, 12 of the last 17, all over the total. I saw this one earlier at 217. You're now up to 219. I think that's a sign that's telling us something. And that's why I like the over 219.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree. I think that sharp market movement there. And speaking of a sharp market movement on this game, taking Detroit at plus 4.5, and that is getting steamed in the Detroit direction. And, if sharps are pounding Detroit, who has been historically awful for the last 2.5 seasons, take notice. And I was looking at this last night, and Detroit is 0-4 straight up. That doesn't really tell you the direct story here. 2-1-1 ATS, very competitive against the number, and played Indiana, Cleveland, Boston, and Miami. Those are pretty much the top four teams in the East in the last couple seasons. So they played up to these teams, and now they get Philadelphia, as I mentioned, without Joel and Paul George. This team is basically Tyrese Maxey, older players, Kyle Lowry, Andre Drummond, and just random role players. It's a very poor level roster. Philadelphia is 1-2 ATS. They're actually coming off of an outright win at Indiana over the weekend. We talked about how poor Indiana has been, so don't let that fake you out into thinking that Philadelphia is playing great ball here. Speaking of playing great ball, as Coach mentioned, in this rivalry, pseudo-rivalry, not in the division, I'm not entirely sure how much these teams have a rivalry, but they do have a lot of information. Detroit has gotten dominated by Philly over the last two seasons. Philly is 7-1 ATS, 8-0 straight up against Detroit in this window with Cade Cunningham and company. All blowouts. The last two matchups, Philadelphia 124-92, Philadelphia 121-02. The lines in those games, 15.5, 14.5. So books told you blowouts. Blowouts came. Now books move it down to 5. They know the numbers. We tell you the story. I think Detroit gets their first outright win of the season tonight in Philadelphia. Coach on the over at 219. I'm on the side at plus 4.5. I think Detroit wins this game tonight. Let's get them, Detroit. Let's dominate. Knicks at Heat tonight in Miami, 7:30 at the Casillas Center. A lot of conversation in this game, a historical rivalry in the Eastern Conference. Two teams with moving parts early season. Knicks making a big trade, notably terrible on defense. Worst defensive rating in the league through 4 games. Junior's in the house. Coach is in the house. We want to talk the over. Junior, talk to me on the over at 215.
Yeah, I mean, the over would be, I guess, the only look. I don't have an official on this game, but because of the Knicks' defensive futility, that would be my lean. But it's only a lean because I don't really, again, hate to repeat myself, make too many sweeping takes based on 4 games, especially with the fact that I was kind of trying to dig into the numbers, and the one positive, I know off camera I was kind of ripping into the Knicks, but the one positive I was able to find is they're defending without fouling. They're giving up the second fewest free throws a game. So fundamentally, things are in place, but the other teams just seem to not be missing. And I don't really want to go. You either ride the wave or get off. I'm not really trying to get in the way of that. And on the flip side, regular season Miami, I'm just going to be brutally honest with anyone watching, is one of the most difficult teams for me to cap in the NBA. So I kind of tend to stay away from Miami regular season unless I see a clear advantage. I don't in this one.
Yeah, I think you're making a great point about Miami, and I think that is also access to the over here. Miami doesn't bring their top quality until after the new year. This is an older team. It's a coach who has won multiple NBA championships. They don't take the game that seriously early season, which does speak to the over. And I think, Coach, you agree with this as well.
Yeah, I do. The Knicks, I mean, I thought they were a defensive juggernaut. Obviously, they're not. You mentioned Towns. They've got some issues defensively. I think Miami's having a few issues as well. But historically, and if you look at some numbers, and Junior mentioned small sample size, and I know rosters change and whatnot, but Knicks have seen the over cash in 13 of their last 20 games. 4 of the last 6 Knicks Heat games also to the over. They see some low numbers. It's 215 tonight. I feel like this one goes over.
Yeah, I would have to agree. And I think even going back to last year, the last time these teams did play, it was in Miami late season on April 2nd. The total was 109-99. That did go over. As you mentioned, these teams have clustered overs in recent history. But I think in terms of the actual Vegas line, the line there was only 205.5. So when the books have a low line and it goes over and they move it even higher up, what they're telling you is they agree that this matchup will have more points. So I think this is a pretty noteworthy total here at 213.5, open, steam to 215. I think you could see 225 points here tonight. I got the hat on. It's a golden Knicks hat. A lot of points coming in this game tonight. If you guys are betting this game, bet the over at 215, and let's cash this one. That's at Grizzlies. Out of conference ball here on this Wednesday. A lot of stuff going on in this game. Brooklyn last night lit up Denver. Now they got to travel to Memphis, a great home team at the Grindhouse. Junior's here, Coach is here. Junior, any thoughts on this game?
Yeah, this is a difficult one to cap because some of the numbers that I'm seeing are probably related to, Jaren Jackson Jr. not being out. Like the Grizzlies are the 3rd worst defensive rebounding team, even though I've said, Shark, you already got to know what I'm going to say. Jaren Jackson Jr. has got to be the worst defensive rebounding defensive player of the year I've ever seen. Where I come from, rebound is the last action of defense. So until they get that part of their game sorted out, kind of not sure what they are. But I do love an angle that I heard you and Coach talking about. So I'll kick it to you guys and let you guys give them your play.
Yeah, the official play on this game, we're taking Memphis in the first quarter at -4.5. And, Junior and I were just talking about this off the air, but it's a big line. FanDuel here has the line at -11.5 for the game, -4.5 in the first quarter. And when you look at that, it tells you a story. The proportion is so high versus the game. They're telling you this Memphis team has reverted back to the team with Ja Morant 2 years ago, that at the Grindhouse with this home crowd, comes out to run you out of the gym, and they're already 2-0 ATS in the first quarter at home this year in this small window, probably not coincidentally, both against the Eastern Conference. Got Orlando by 10 points outright in the first quarter, got Chicago by 10 points outright in the first quarter. I think this is a great spot to fade Brooklyn early tonight. Last night, Brooklyn came out on Denver in Brooklyn with 40 points in the first quarter. I had the under. It was an egregious loss. We won't lose like that for the rest of the year. And what it really was a shooting outlier. Brooklyn came out 17 for 21 from the field on a fatigued Denver team who wasn't really competing. But I think psychologically, when you light up a team at your home in your home stadium with 40 night one, it's very hard to repeat that on the road night two. And even more detail on this, they lost the game late. So you give this huge energy and you still lose. And now you got to go to Memphis. It's why the line is so heavy. We love the first quarter at -4.5. Coach, I see you nodding your head. Talk to me.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to play anything, you're going to play that first quarter. As a coach, the psyche here, Brooklyn, back to back, huge emotion from last night, and they lose, they got to come in, and it's, they're going to go through the motions, I think, early on. Memphis, they scrap their kind of defensive mindset, and they play fast. Like you said, they're playing at home. They're going to come out of the gate, and I like it. I know it's -4.5. It's bigger than a bucket, but I think the Grizzlies can cover that first quarter spread.
Absolutely. And as we go forward this season, of course, still in the first week, or this is just after the first week, this is an 8-month calendar, and situational spots in the NBA very often are first quarters and first halves. Groups come out with specific energies, home and road, and even more specifically on back-to-backs, night one and night two. So this is the great conversation and the analysis we will bring you guys day after day this season on NBA player performance. The buy hat is engaged. Take Memphis in the first quarter at a heavy -4.5, and let's cash this ticket. Spurs at Thunder. A big-time game, 9:30 ESPN. Wemby Season 2, SGA and these dogs competing at an incredibly high level this season and last. Junior in the house, Coach in the house. Junior looking at the OKC team total over 117.5.
Yeah, my angle is a little bit different in the sense that, first of all, I'm going to talk about something that Shark usually talks about. The camaraderie that the Thunder have is just something that it's very unique in the league. It's a group of players that are, 25 and under. And I think something to just further cement that point is when they went and played against Chicago the other day, did you guys see that they made sure they took a group picture with Giddey on the court in Chicago? That's a solid, tight-knit group. And I say all of that to say Chet and Wemby hate each other's guts. And it's not a coincidence that every single time OKC plays the Spurs, they play the hardest that you'll see them play against any team. I don't really think that changes. I don't really have a feel for the spread because the Spurs are an improved defensive team on top of the fact that OKC is struggling offensively. But in terms of scoring points, OKC will get right. Variance will swing their way. I think that 117.5 is just, 117.5 is just a shade too low.
Great analysis there. My official play on this game, San Antonio at +12.5. And as Junior mentioned, Wemby and Holmgren, a rivalry game. And I think Wemby's going to play up in this matchup as well and really lead this game to be a lot tighter than people think. The games last year were all blowouts decided by over 14 points. And now you see the line tighter. And you always have to listen to the books and say to yourself, why is the line tighter than last year's results? It's because the Spurs are much improved. Chris Paul, Harrison Barnes, Wemby put on 25 pounds. This is a buy team in all capacities, particularly early season. Not only that, this is a unique calendar spot for the Spurs. Front and back-to-back, going to Utah tomorrow. Last year, the Spurs were 8-3 ATS in their last 11 in the front end of a back-to-back, cratering night two. This is where they bring their energy. And I think OKC is a little bit too hot in the early season. 3-0 ATS, beat Denver on the road. Denver's 0-4 ATS, so that's not as impressive as it might look. Beat down a very poor Chicago team, as Junior mentioned, in the giddy revenge game, and did hammer Atlanta on Sunday. Atlanta is very pedestrian. OKC looked flat. 39-18 fourth quarter. They awakened. I think that flatness might continue tonight. I think this game is tight. I have OKC to win this game inside of 10 points. Officially on plus 13.5. Coach Rick in the house. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I think the Spurs will have some trouble with OKC's defense. 90.8 points per possession. I mean, they're so good defensively. Golden State's number 2. They're at 99. They've held all their opponents to 104 points or less. Will the Spurs keep it close? Maybe, but they're going to have a tough time doing it.
Yeah, and I think that's why you're seeing the total actually considerably lower than last year's totals, because OKC last year put up 123, 140, 118, and 127 in this matchup. And now books have this game total at 221.5. So again, I think this is going to be potentially a tighter game here. And a lot of officials, Junior on Thunder over in the team totals market, 117.5. I am on plus 12.5. 9:30 ESPN will be a great game to watch and a great game to bet. Best of luck. Let's dominate.
Tell me what you gonna do now. Keep rolling.
Thank you guys for watching NBA player performance on this Wednesday, October 30th, 2024. A big card it is. 7 official plays, top conversation, hype, analysis, and picks. Make sure you head on over to ylose.com, YLOSE.com for VIP packages and more plays, free picks, stats, scores, trends, and more. For the legend himself, J.A. Cavalier, on vacation this week, I am your guest host, The Shark. Junior Brown laid down the fire. Coach Rick told us the hot takes, and an opportunity to dominate exists. Remember a couple things. Yesterday is a memory. Tomorrow is not guaranteed. Be in the now. Dominate the board. Follow our sharp takes, and let's dominate.
Cut my life into pieces. This is my last resort. Suffocation, no breathing. Don't give a fuck if I cut my arm.